Alright, welcome back. It's time to start assembling all of this. I made a few extra parts and a few small modifications. I added there we go. I added a one of these things, what would you even call that? It's got a fuse in it, power switch, and a spot for a power cable. I had one of those laying around, so I figured that would be a good thing to use it on. We've got our platter here that I turned down. It looks pretty terrible, but the important thing is that it's flat now. So I may try some things to clean this up, but that may be outside of these videos. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't look as nice as I'd like. Set this over here. I made this, which will hold the Arduino. I hadn't actually given that too much thought. I figured I would come up with something once I had this kind of assembled and figured out where I had some room to put it. And turns out I had no room to put it, so I made this cool little bracket that will go right inside here and will hold that. And other than that, I think we're ready to go. We can at least get started. Let's get some of this big stuff out of the way. I will have to pause this here in a bit and come back tomorrow. There are a few pieces that I'm waiting on. I need a 12-volt power supply, which will power the fan and the Arduino. I had looked into some other options here that I could do at the house, but it just didn't, for as cheap as they are to buy online, a 12-volt DIN rail mountable power supply is just wait an extra couple days for it to get here from Amazon. So we've got that I'm waiting on, and then I need some more of the roll-in T-nuts. I didn't have quite enough to do all of these things, so we're waiting on that as well. But let's get this in. This is the power supply for the servo motor. And I should have most of the hardware already kind of gathered around, but we'll see. Kind of went through all my parts and you know, got the 3 screws I need for this and the 4 screws for the Arduino and all that stuff. And this one is, there we go. I think there's a cross thread on there. Not to worry though. Fortunately, I happen to have exactly 4 of the right size screw that we'll need for this fan here, which is pretty amazing. I've already been to the hardware store a handful of times, getting 1 or 2 nuts and bolts at a time. Alright, power supply's in, get that out of the way. We'll get the fan in next because it shouldn't be in the way much at all, but it's in the way on the bench. Okay, so the fan guard goes on first. And then the fan airflow we want to blow in. So that is, it'll be on here somewhere. No? It's usually on one of the sides, but oh, there it is. Right there in the, molded into the plastic. If you look around the fans, there will be, at least I've always found a direction that says which way it rotates and which way the air flows. So we want the air to flow in. So point it this way. And this power cable, let's see, the power supply is going to go on the right hand side. So this side. So I guess we want the power cable to come out that side. Just like building lasers again. use these same guards for those, and it'd be the same kind of pain in the ass to get them to go together. Here we go. Yeah, these bolts are barely long enough. They're about the size that I would pick if I had a choice, because the threads won't quite make it through the nuts, so they'll be as low profile as possible. I'm going to need little pliers. I'm not going to go digging for the right wrench to actually hold these nuts. It's not that big of a deal. Not for 4 of them anyway. No. Still no. There we go. And I am using the nylon lock nuts. Hopefully keep this thing from shaking itself loose. See, if you're doing anything where you've got these 120mm fans, really any size fan, you can get these little filter assemblies for really pretty cheap. They're only a few dollars. It's nice, you can keep some of the dust and stuff out, and you can cut whatever size filters you want and just stick them on top of there. And then this part, be careful, these things like to snap off really easily, but it just clips over. There we go. Now hopefully there should be enough room that that's not touching the bench. Yep, there's probably a 1/4 inch or so of clearance, which will be plenty. Alright, so power supply's in and the fan is in. I've already written down all of my wiring, so I guess what we do now is take the Arduino and all the buttons and stuff apart and hope we can get it all put back together in a way that still works. Get the soldering iron plugged back in. I'm going to actually, I think I'm going to remove the headers from the Arduino. I don't ever plan on using this again, this Arduino. If I've got what are they called now? The ones that run Python. The feather, yeah, the Adafruit feathers. I've got a couple of those, and actually one of them is the same shape and form factor and has compatibility with the Arduinos, but it runs a much faster processor. I think it might even be cheaper. So I don't ever plan on using this Arduino again, so I'm going to, because this thing's going to vibrate and stuff, I don't know that I really trust all of these little pins and things, so I am just going to desolder most of this and solder directly onto the board. Same thing with the touch screen. I'm going to take these headers out and solder directly in, and for the wiring I'm going to use some Ethernet cable. It's got, well, let me see, I think it has just enough for the, because there's what, 4 pairs of 2, 4, 6, 8. So it's got the perfect number of conductors for the screen. This whole system has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's got the perfect number for the buttons. Yeah, so I'm going to use Ethernet cable. I was thought about using ribbon cable, but I like this stuff better. I'm going to go get the solder sucker so we can get these things desoldered. Also got some solder wick here just in case. Okay, let's see. First let's get the pins off of the screen. It should be, I'm procrastinating taking all the connections off the Arduino. I've written them, I think, all down, but it's just one of those things that as soon as you take it apart, I've even taken pictures, but I just hope it goes back together easily. let's see, for these, since I'm not going to be using these pins anymore, let's zoom in here. Is that good? I guess it should be. Let me move this out of the way. I'm going to cut all of these, well, not all, yeah, maybe all of them. It's a lot easier to desolder one thing at a time, and if these are all connected to each other, you gotta kind of try to get them all out at once. I may skip over parts of this if it takes too long. And hopefully, see how hot these get. Well, that's not bad. All right. Okay, let's make a note here, the screen will have, I guess we'll have brown. Brown can be negative, and brown and white can be positive. Let's see, I want these to come in through the back because it's going to get mounted in the panel. Yes, so I want the wires coming out of this back side. So brown is ground. Brown and white. Then let's do orange and white is clock. Orange is miso. Should have done these in Ethernet color orders. I'll straighten these out in a minute. Orange, green and white is mossy. Green is CS. Well, that's interesting. Blue and, so that's green and white. Green. And then we'll have SDA will be blue and white. And blue. Green and white really wants to be trimmed a little bit more, I think. Alright, everybody just relax. One of those third-hand vice holder things would be handy right about now. Whatever they call them. Alright, we'll just do these one at a time now that they're all in here, and I'll just straighten them up as I go. Because they're not really wanting to cooperate. Which, hey, that's fine. Right. There. So that's our panel wired up. And we will set that aside for now, I guess. Actually, there's no sense in setting it aside. Let's put it in the panel it goes in. Now I don't remember which way's up. I guess it doesn't matter, it can be changed in software, but if I recall, I feel like this way is up. Little bag or little bit of hardware there. I had to machine up these tiny little brass spacers since they didn't have anything at the hardware store. Yeah, I got some of those are still touching. Which I can clean up. The weird thing though is that it's not level on the front here. This side is sticking out a little bit and this side is in a little bit. And I think that has to do with the screen here. Because it's kind of double-sided taped onto the circuit board. I think that is causing a little bit of a problem. You know, actually I'm quite liking this idea. Heat up the I don't know if this will be in focus. Heat up the solder joint just a little bit and pull the wire back out just so it's even with the top of the PCB. Actually, I'm going to go get the hot glue gun here real quick, just to add a little extra insulation around these wires in the back, since they're a little exposed now. Alright, so let's see what the deal is with this screen. Thinking super glue is going to be the way to go. I'm just trying to find a good spot to put it. I guess underneath this underneath the metal and plastic there. And I guess the same thing on this side. Because it's, can't have it like that. I try to avoid all the circuitry and stuff. It just occurs to me while I'm doing this, I've got the hot glue gun. That would probably be a good idea too. Arguably a better one. Well, I don't know about better. Blow it in there. Now we wait. Helped a lot more on this side, it seems. Well, we'll have some hot glue help. Yeah. Let's see, first off, if we can get some Alright, got a little bit of help there. I don't know that I necessarily want to put anything along the edge. Let's hope that the super glue and the hot glue will kind of help hold all that together. So let's just put some across all of these. Because these are the pads that are going to be up against the enclosure, the metal of the case. So having a little bit of something there. Kapton tape would probably be a better choice, but I don't have any. I don't know if this side matters or not. I don't know if this gets any power through from the other side. The one side of this has to do with powering it through SPI, and the other side, or powering and communicating through SPI, and the other side, all just came out of there, has to do with the other way of doing it. There we go. Alright, now let's stick this guy in here again. Yeah, it looks... It's certainly better. It's probably as good as it's gonna get. Because if that screen's not on the PCB even, there's not a whole lot I can do about it. Okay, so the screen is in. Next up will be the buttons, since we're up here. Alright, so let's see what we can do about the... I'll do the buttons first. Hey there, not recording. I'm not sure if this... I have a Panasonic GH4 I'm using. I don't know if it... If I... you know, 10% of the time if I forget to hit record, or if it's not... if it's not doing it. Technically that fits. Oh no, wait. This actually goes up flush with the bottom. So it will fit if I cut off the top of that PCB. It'll fit the way it is right now. So I'm not sure what all we saw, but I just put in the buttons and the PCB with the encoder on it. And I suppose now what I will do is, I'm debating if I want to just take these switches, wires, and go over to the board here, and then have another Ethernet connection. It's not Ethernet, it's just an Ethernet cable, because it happens to have the right number of conductors. And then I can take, let's see. Wait, no, these actually were for, let's see, the whites. Oh no, this was, okay, so this was this portion of the board. That's probably why I put it over here so far. This was just for the switches, so they didn't have to have a big long set of wires coming back for power and ground. So this stuff doesn't need to be here. That yellow wire, not sure what that yellow wire is for. I will leave it, but I can trim off these. Actually, I tried to desolder these. Is that still on? No. Why are you not? Oh, because I turned it off. Oh. So far, so good. And now this wire, I think, is not connected to anything else. Jesus. Yeah, that's just... There's no reason for this to be here anymore. That was just to get power over to the... You know what? I'm just going to leave it. It's fine. It's not hurting anything being there. Those technically have plenty of room, but, well, let me see. Before I do anything else, I got to figure out what I want to really do with the wiring. Alright, we'll leave this. We won't do it with Ethernet on this one. We'll leave this here since this is already soldered in and everything, and it's in a nice insulated jacket anyway, so that's kind of, I just didn't want a whole bunch of wires loose on the inside, so that's the only reason I didn't go with just regular old wire. So those four are fine. This orange needs to go to the Arduino, so I'll have Ethernet coming to this board. Well, let's get the switches wired up. That's easy enough to do. Let's also take this off. Can I cut this without it being too upset? It seems like it. Yeah. Alright. Now that won't interfere with the aluminum extrusion frame. Looks like the red and the white on these switches are just for the LEDs. So that's easy enough. I almost don't need to write that down, but I probably should. And since this Ethernet cable's only going to be for the LEDs, I won't have them joined up in parallel like I did before. I mean, I guess technically they'll still be in parallel, but I won't have wires jumping back and forth between the switches. I'll just, because they both take 5 volts, they both take ground, I'll have 2 of these be 5 volt and 2 of these will be ground. So, if you can't tell, I don't really have a plan for this. I found, unfortunately for me, plans tend to be less helpful than helpful. Because I'll have a plan of, oh hey, I'll do this, and I'll be all set, and then I'll go to do that, and it'll be, oh hey, you forgot you can't do this unless you do that first. And I don't have that. So that kind of thing. So I kind of tend to do most of my stuff just as I go along with what I have on hand. It works okay, I guess. Alright, so brown can be one of the positives. Did I leave? Looks like I left most of these terminals still open a bit, which makes soldering quite a bit easier generally. So you can bend it just right and it'll sort of hold itself on that terminal. So brown is one positive. Snip off a little bit of extra here. That one's all soldered on. That's nice. And then we'll have our brown and white and blue and white matching pairs be the negative. Alright, so that's those set. Now one of these that was blue, blue will now be orange. Yes. So there are 8 connections between the two, and there's 8 pairs in the Ethernet cable, so we can do this. So we'll take our blue off. I'll leave that one there just for reference. So blue is now orange and green. And so red, we will now make orange and white. The old green will be green and white. So green, this one. Not my favorite solder joint in the world, but it'll be fine. Okay. unplug the glue gun. Yay! Yeah, it's not the best looking in the world, but you know, it'll do. Alright, now I'm going to take a few minutes. Yeah. I'm going to take a few minutes to get all these header pins off and get all these cleaned up, and then we'll be back. That way you don't have to sit here for the next 20 minutes watching me do that. Alright, that didn't actually take that much time. If you've got those headers and you're trying to remove them, you just take a small pair of snips and just snip it. Each of the holes, you can basically just crush that hole in and it just breaks apart. And you just go down the line, it all just crumbles apart, and then you're just left with a bunch of little fingers sticking through the holes, and those are easy enough to just pop out. So, we've got our board now. I solder sucked and solder wicked the pad so they're nice and clean. The holes go all the way through. So it should be pretty straightforward to put the rest of this together. Now I am going to come in from the top. No, I'd rather solder from the bottom, I think. So I guess let's get started. So, see, it's kind of hard to estimate how long these wires need to be. Get out of there, you. So this is going to go here. This stuff goes here. I mean, really, we're not talking very much distance. Orange from the control board. Orange went to A2. Right? No. The clear path stuff, the screen. Actually, let's do the screen first and get that out of the way. What is the best way to get some more 5? Because I've got 1, 2, at least 3 grounds I can use, but only one 5-volt header. I don't have any more of those tiny little terminal strips. That would be cool. I don't think. Let me go check. Alright, no little terminal strips. I think the best or easiest thing to do is going to be to bring them all to here, which kind of means that the sheathing around these is sort of useless now. But you know, hey, there's wire ties and stuff, but I just wanted it to be nice-ish looking. It's the best way to get guess just take it off a bit at a time. Maybe at least I can leave them mostly twisted together. It looks like the inside of a space shuttle or something. Or a phone exchange. Alright, so 5 volts. With the potentiometer board, black goes to ground, 5 volts goes to white, which makes sense. Yep. 5 volts for the screen is brown and white, which makes sense. Voltage in. This is the disadvantage of using Ethernet cable or any other twisted pair cable. They twist the wires around each other. Oh, I didn't need to untwist those. because the ground is. Can I twist you back together? Hey, look at you. Twist them back together. These are both going over to that board. There's no reason to untwist them and make a mess. Alright, that's long enough. Alright, so we got those two. We need brown and white, blue and white from over here. Oh yes, brown and white and brown. And blue and white and blue. Alright, so these sets are all 5 volts and grounds. And then this is where the 5 volt and ground will come from the Arduino. So I just need to connect all of these to our 5 volt little rail here and our ground rail. Alright, let's see if we can't make a decent solder bridge here. Hey, you got 2 of them already. Three. And 4. Huzzah! Well, that was easy. Alright. Put a blob of hot glue on the other side just to be sure and careful. I'll probably put some on the top here as well once we're finally done. The potentiometer, ground is black and 5 volts is white. Brown goes to A0, blue goes to A1. All right. That's done and that's done. Now the screen, we can do the screen next. That is these. SCL. SCL is blue. SCL goes to A5. SDA is blue and white. Blue and white goes to A4. All right. So on this side, those are done. So let's go in order. So they go from 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. What? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Why is there an extra? Oh, did I not connect DC? There's a chance. CS. Yeah, I didn't connect DC. Fortunately, hot glue isn't permanent. There we go. Quite nicely, there was a little barrier of hot glue on the other side, so it didn't poke through and get the sheet metal. That's nice. All right, so now brown is DC, so that goes to 9. Just get this one taken care of now. All right, so green goes to 10. Green and white goes to 11. Orange goes to 12, and orange and white goes to 13. All right, so that's the screen taken care of. This orange from the, we've already got 5 volts in ground. We've got that and that. We've got that, and that, and that, and that. Orange goes to A2. So we do have one more on that side. And I can technically work with that. Not well, but you know, it works. Alright, now the buttons. Orange, red, green, and blue. So red, green, and blue. Red is now orange and white. So orange and white goes to D3. Presuming is over here. Must just mean digital 3. I'm not sure why I wrote D3 on this and not on the others, but that's fine. So orange, both orange and green are what blue used to be, and blue goes to ground. So both orange and green go to ground. Which means I guess I unwind these and take them back to the other board. So green and white is what green used to be, and green goes to D2. Right, so you two are ground, which makes sense because those are our two inputs, and those will be being pulled low when you press the switch. Some more grounds, huh? Peel you guys back a bit and see if I can't squeeze these in here. Don't mind me. Just doing some questionable wiring here. All right. So that's done. So is that everything? It's all of this stuff. Yep. So the clear path wiring, the actual motor control wiring, this will have to get cut down by a lot. Oh, I could have used some of this wire. This is nice wire. This is just going from the center of the box to the Arduino, so like this much is plenty. I'm gonna add just a little extra just to be safe. Yikes. Alright, so this wire is the blue clear path. That is orange goes to ground, so that's going to be one of those grounds I said I wanted to save on the board. Well, let's just go in order. Orange is ground, and these are going to go to D5 and 6, so I'll use this ground over here. This is just awkward. Awkward soldering. Right. Yellow. Yellow goes to ground? And orange goes to ground? Why? Alright. Trying to think. I don't think anything else connects to the board, so I can use my other... Oh no, I need to use that for something else. Is the AREF... Looks like that's got 2 ground pins. Is that right? Look. So I presume you won't mind if I take one of these to use as a ground, eh? See, jab this in here. That's interesting. Oh, that one's not connected. I see. Yes, so this pin I can use as a ground. The ground is the same on both sides of the board, is it? Yes. Alright, so which one was I just on? Yellow. Second. There we go, I'm sure that's just fine. Alright. Okay, so that one's done. Black goes to D6. And blue goes to D5. Alright. The rest of these wires are for other things. One of them is your feedback, your high-level feedback, and that lets you can set it to give a signal based on many different things, whether the motor's enabled or whether it's disabled, or it's there's just a whole bunch of lists. You set that up in the software. I'm not using that though. Let's see, there's enable, there's, I'm not sure what the other one is. Let me look. Oh, okay, so we've got your high-level feedback that I'm not using, the enable that I am using, input A, which is going to be your you know, telling it what direction to go or whatever you might be doing, and input B, which is just another input you might use for step and direction, or it depends what you're using the motor for, what you would use those different inputs for. Gotcha, so that makes sense. So these I will zip tie, I think, up here. I always like to do that with connector or with wires I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with. You don't want to just cut them off because then they're not there if you need them, and you don't want to leave them just dangling. So I like to just take I wish I had some smaller zip ties, but I'm out. Let's take a zip tie and zip tie them up there. Keep them out of the way. Actually, you know what, just because, and because I think the gun is still ready, I'll put a nice glob of stuff on here. Oh boy, that's more than I wanted. And that'll just make sure that nothing happens to bump up against a piece of the enclosure or who knows what. Oh boy. Alright, I'll just hold that there. And yeah, I think that is it for today. I've got to get the power supply tomorrow. And I can work on that. Then I can hook up power to this thing and see if everything works. And the magnet will be here tomorrow, so I can get the magnets put on, and we should be pretty much good to go then. Hot. All right, and see you guys tomorrow.